Donna, do you have the minutes from the May 24th general membership meeting?
Yes, I do. Would you like me to read them?
Please.
Okay. Motion. Betty Graham moved that the minutes of the April 26, 2022 general meeting be approved, and Nancy Roberson seconded the motion. The minutes were approved with no corrections. Maureen Fitzgerald read the treasurer's report, which had previously been approved by the board. Lynn Grossman thanked the members who responded to her survey about the anniversary luncheon. The members chose the in-person luncheon option. See the website to make your reservations for the July 12 event at Woodhaven Country Club. Carol Whittlage reported that registration for the October 15th seminar is now open on our website, kylgs.org. This conference will not be recorded, so any of our members who would like access to the programs will have to attend. Jean stated that 5 people went to the Allen County Public Library in Fort Wayne, Indiana for the spring field trip. It was a projected outing, but hopefully more members will attend in the future. Nancy announced that the next German SIG meeting will be on June the 7th at 2 p.m. The link for this Zoom meeting, which is the same every month, is on the website. The June 14th program will be in person at the LDS Church at 1 p.m. The speaker will be Kevin Gibson, who will present This Used to Be Louisville. On June the 28th, there will be a Zoom-only workshop presented by Nancy Roberson at 1 p.m. entitled Learn How to Write for Your Genealogical Quarterly. Register on the website. Nancy introduced Derek Blunt, who presented Bring Out Your Dead. Respectfully submitted, Donna Brewster, recording secretary.
Could I have a motion to accept the minutes of the?
Make a motion, Nancy Roberson, to
Nancy
accept the minutes.
Who was the second?
Howard.
Howard for Donna. Anybody opposed to the motions? Wave your hands or something. All right. I can't see any on the page I'm on, so we'll assume that everybody said yay. The minutes are accepted. If I could talk, that would help. The treasurer's report. Maureen could not be here, so I will just summarize the May treasurer's report. We had a total income of $440, a total expenses of $134.90, leaving us a checking account balance of $17,240.53. I think we're in good order. So we'll accept that treasurer's report was already accepted at the board meeting. All right. Betty Graham is going to tell us a little bit about the anniversary luncheon and how that's gone.
Thank you. We had 44 people to sign up. So those reservations have already been finalized with Woodhaven. And that's out off of Bardstown Road. If you remember how to get out there, there's directions on the flyer on the website. Looking forward to it. It will not be Zoom. I think that was mentioned in the minutes. But so just the people who have signed up that have been finalized with Woodhaven can go to it. We're looking forward to hearing Lee Pennington speak on Prince Madoc.
Thank you, Betty.
I think that's all I have.
All right. Is it Jack or Carol? Somebody's going to talk about the seminar. Is that you, Carol?
Yes. Yes. I'd like to invite everyone to register for our virtual family history seminar. It will be on Saturday, October the 15th. Our guest speaker is Angela Packer McGee. She's a nationally recognized genealogy educator. She'll be giving 4 lectures on that day, focusing on use of census records, use of land records, and one of her talks will be about resolving conflicting information. As mentioned in the minutes, this is real time only. She won't be recorded. There's information additional information on our website about registering. We have early bird registration and some prizes for early registration. These will include 2 DNA test kits, membership to our organization, and also a ability to attend a virtual conference given by the Southern California Genealogy group that will take place in August. This looks like a huge conference. So for all of those incentives, please register, please sign up.
Carol?
Just one correction. There's one DNA kit for the early bird and one for the day of the seminar.
Oh, okay.
Okay. And
Thank
what is the date that ends the early bird?
July.
People know how soon they need to register.
July 31st is the end of the early bird.
Yeah. Thank you, Carol. Susan, do you want to talk some about travel plans?
Anyway, we're going to Salt Lake on the 4th of September through the 11th. That's a Sunday to Sunday. You are responsible for making your own travel plans, but we do have rooms reserved at the Plaza Hotel, which is conveniently located right next to the Family History Library. This is a really fun trip. If you haven't been there before, you're missing out. Last year, we had 5 or 6 brand new people, and they had a wonderful time. It's quite an experience to go. I don't know how many of you have thought about it. I know there are a few people who have already told me they're going, but if you would please just put something in the chat, and I'll be looking for it, that you're considering it or that you've already decided, let me know. That gives me an idea, and that way I can keep track of the rooms that are already taken care of. Once you make a reservation at the hotel, and all this information is on the website and also in the quarterly, then you need to let me know. That way I keep track too. If you have any questions, you can certainly put those in the chat too, and I'll help you out, send you my email address so we can talk further, whatever you'd like to do, but we would certainly like you to join us. It's a great trip.
Thank you, Susan. We do need some volunteers. We're always looking for people who are willing to give some of their time to help this organization. We need, we're still looking for a sergeant at arms. We need a welcome person. This person has designed a kit. The previous person has designed a sort of like a kit, a welcome kit to send to new members. And for the times that we are actually meeting in person, the welcome person will greet the new members that show up at an in-person meeting and give them their kit in person sometimes. Let's see. And Susan could use a travel assistant. She's been our travel lady for quite a while, and I think she'd like to teach somebody else how to do that. So if you would be interested in doing that.
Hey, Jane.
Yes,
Jane,
Susan.
The nice thing is about the travel now, we've pretty much decided, in the fall, we go to Salt Lake. In the spring, we go to Indiana to the public library up there. And those trips are pretty much stationary. You can always change them. That's no problem. We have some nice hotels. So a lot of the groundwork has been laid. What I'm looking for is somebody to help maybe take it over next year, but the hard work is done. So it's not a big deal. You just have to call, set up the rooms, and just kind of organize everything. It's not a big time consuming project at all.
And you don't actually have to come to a board meeting to do that.
No, you do not have to come to a
It's
board
something
meeting.
you can do from your home.
That's right. You don't have to go anywhere or do anything. You just have to have a telephone to call someone.
Okay, thank you. All right. Nancy, I had listed the 3 upcoming things. You want me to go ahead and list those and then turn it over to you? Or do you
Why don't I
wanna-
take over? Because I'm going to take them to the website and I'll just show them.
All right, because I had 3 things on the list of upcoming
Yes,
events. Well,
for
we'll
July.
turn this meeting over to Nancy then.
Okay. First of all, I want to welcome everybody, all our members, all our guests. I'm totally amazed at the number of people who are showing up today for this presentation. When we thought about creating this presentation, I thought it was so specific, we'd be lucky if we had 30 people attend. But obviously, it's not been taught or approached as a presentation out there. And so I'm amazed. We have people from all over the United States attending today. So I want to welcome you to our 4th Tuesday workshop for the Louisville Genealogical Society. And I see many of you are putting over in the chat where you live. And if you haven't done that yet, please put over there in the chat where you're coming from. It's just really interesting, I think, for everybody who's here today to see where everybody is coming from to attend today. So before I get into our program, I would like to take us to our website and just quickly do the upcoming events. So does everybody see our LGS website?
And after Nancy, after
Yes.
you do that, I can read your introduction.
Oh.
Which
Okay, I will do that. That's right, we left that up. Here's our homepage, kylgs.org, or Google the Louisville Genealogical Society. Everybody see the homepage of our website?
No.
Oh. Okay.
There you go.
Okay, sorry about that.
Yay.
Like I said, we've been out of practice. We had our first in-person meeting for our second Tuesday program this month. And so we weren't on Zoom, and 4 weeks is too far for me to remember everything. So anyways, I apologize. Here's our upcoming seminar. If you'd like to go to our webpage and see about our seminar, we'd love to have you join us in October. Below that is the fall trip that Susan shared with everyone. And then below that are the benefits of membership. And if you're not a member of LGS, we'd love to have you become a part of our organization. So you can join right online here and look at those benefits. What I want to do real quick is show you the upcoming events. So you click on LGS events, we go to what's happening today. And if you don't have the handout yet, it is posted in the chat. And you can also go to our website up until midnight tonight. Our handout will be on our website. Coming up the first Tuesday of every month, we do our German special interest group. We don't have you register for this. The link is right here on the website. So you need to go to our website to this event. And then next Tuesday, July 5th, if you want to join us at 2 o'clock, about 5 to 2, show up and click on this link and you can join us at our 1-hour special interest group on German research. Then there's our anniversary luncheon that they've shared with you. You can go look at that a little bit more. And which I just want to review. We're having our anniversary luncheon on the second Tuesday of the month, usually, and we have decided recently to hold these in person. And so we usually cover local history or the Ohio River Valley history. And that's what we do on the second. The fourth Tuesday of every month, we do a genealogy workshop. So a month from now, Tuesday, July 26th, we are going to have Luann Darby, who's going to talk about, is this the end? Taking your German brick walls down piece by piece. So if you'd love to join us, we'd love to have you with us. You do have to register for this workshop, and the registration is at the bottom. And I'm not going to go through August and September and October, but you're welcome to go to our website and look at our upcoming events. We have some great people coming to do some great presentations. So, Jean, I'm going to turn this back over to you, and then I'll jump in with my PowerPoint.
All right. Nancy Simmons Roberson is a Michigan native. She earned a BA degree in education and did graduate work at Michigan State University. Nancy was a teacher, coach, and administrator at Bath Community Schools in Bath, Michigan. Nancy has over 40 years of genealogical research experience, specializing in Midwest and New England research. She's a past president of the Louisville Genealogical Society and has taught internet genealogy classes at her church, and various branches of the Louisville Public Library. Recently, she's the co-leader of the Louisville German Special Interest Group and a member of the Lines and Bylines editorial committee. When Nancy isn't researching or giving presentations, she's quilting, reading, or spending time with her 7 grandchildren. Okay, Nancy, take it away.
Thanks, Jean, for that introduction. And again, I want to welcome everybody who's joined us for this presentation today. I'm going to try to get to my presentation here. All right. Like I said earlier, LGS went digital about 1.5 years ago, and we went digital with our entire quarterly. It was a really big decision, but as we went there, we were desperate for more people to write articles for our quarterly. And so we decided somebody needed to do a presentation on how to write articles for a genealogical quarterly. And I drew the short straw. So here I am today with a presentation, and I'm going to use the LGS's quarterly lines and bylines for a lot of examples. But for those of you who are joining us and belong to other societies, a lot of this is going to carry over very easily to what you would have to do to write articles for your genealogical society. And so it's really not that hard. I'm hoping today that I can make you comfortable and help you hurdle some of the hazards that cause people to hesitate before they're willing to write an article. Okay, if you have any questions, please put them in chat, and we'll field those questions at the end. It is being recorded, so if you are a member of LGS, you can go behind our member wall and access those quarterlies. So my guidelines, my goals for today is to try to show you some guidelines for how to, what you need to know to put this article together for a quarterly. We're going to talk about different types of articles you can write for lines and bylines. We're going to look at why you really should submit an article to your local genealogical publication. We're going to look at what criteria does it take to write a good article. And then we're going to look at the biggest hurdle that prevents people from writing, and I think that's citation. So I'm going to hopefully give you some tips for citations. And in your handout, there's 3 pages of examples, and we'll talk more about that later on in the presentation. And hopefully I'm going to give you some ideas that will prompt you into saying, yes, I think I can write an article for my local genealogical publication. And so throughout the presentation, I hope I'm giving you prompts to give you confidence and ideas for what you might do to add to your genealogical publications. General guidelines, and these guidelines are going to be pretty similar to most genealogical publications. I belong to several societies, and each of their quarterlies have different guidelines, but they're all very similar. So number 1, editors of our quarterly reserve the right to edit material. Pretty similar for every publication that's put out there. No payment is made for articles. Lines and bylines will not accept an article that's being considered for publication elsewhere simultaneously, which means if you're going to write a beautiful article and submit it, don't send it to another society at the same time. We like to have some, a time period between that. If your submission is an index or an abstract of a published work that you think would be very valuable for the members of the society, and so you're going to do an abstract or an index, make sure you get permission and secure that and note it in the article. And then once your article is finished, you want to email it as an attachment to the editor. And then please remember, emailing and correspond with your editor. They're more than willing to work with you to get that article written. I went back a slide here because this was the first one. This is just basically dealing with formatting. So you want to type up your article in an electronic format, preferably using Microsoft Word. But an equivalent of that is acceptable if we can convert it. Use Time Roman for our article, size 14 for the article, maybe size 16 for the title. Now, every quarterly has a little different usage here. Some want it in 12, font. So check your local quarterly and your editor and find out what they want you to type it in and what font. We use single space, but we double space between paragraphs. Another tip is many of us took typing class in high school and learned to double space between sentences. In digital articles, a single space is all that's needed. So that's a hard one to remember because we're so conditioned. But if you can try to remember that, single space between your sentences for a digital article. If your article's lengthy, the editors might decide to divide it in 2 parts and put one in one quarterly and wait to the next issue. Here's the big one. Sources must be cited and need to be cited as footnotes for our quarterly, not endnotes. Some quarterlies will allow you to use endnotes. So again, depending on your local society, you need to find out which format they want to use for sources. For lines and bylines, we would like you to do footnotes, and I will address this later on in the presentation. And footnotes are smaller than your regular text. So since we're doing our regular body of our paper or our article in size 14, we'd ask to put the footnotes in 12. And then if you're including a web address, even shrink it down to a 10, because that could be 4 or 5 lines. And really all we want the reader to be able to do is access it by hitting it, selecting it. So let's look at different types of articles that can be written. There's a variety out there, and we're going to look at the very first one is you could choose local records. So here you could do church records, which could be minutes of a church, baptisms, a list of marriages, cemetery records, school records. The one I really like is old newspaper extracts. A lot of times I'm reading through newspaper.com to find an obit, and I'll see a really interesting article pertaining to the city that I'm in here, maybe in Louisville, or I research a lot in Detroit area. So if you find an interesting newspaper article, that makes a really good submission to your local quarterly. Maybe you have some business records of somebody who owned a business. Maybe your great-great-grandfather owned a bakery and you have his business records. That'd be an excellent article for your quarterly. Town trustee records, clubs and lodge records. Those are all good. So here's an example. I went into our lines and bylines and pulled out an example of an article written in the summer 2005. And this is a list of microfilm project list. Let me see if I can. Got this little laser printer pointer. Anyways, here's the microfilm project list. And this is down at the Louisville, Jefferson County Metro Archives Urban County Government Center. We refer to it as the Metro Archives. Now the address here is Barrett Avenue. And in 2005, that's where it was. It has now changed. It's over on Industrial Drive, I think it is. But this person, I think it was the editor at the time in 2005, went in and pulled out a list of the microfilm that they have at the Metro Archives. And this is about a 3 or 4 page article. And it starts with tax records as early as 1834, Jefferson County tax list back to 1789, index to deeds, Virginia surveys. Remember, early on, we were a Commonwealth part of Virginia. So here are those early Virginia surveys and land grants. And this goes on. This list goes on for deaths and births and many, many things. So very valuable for the readers here in Louisville. But people out there in other areas, maybe you have a repository that might have a list that would be valuable for your members to see in your quarterly. Another area of articles could be court records. And so, of course, those would be wills, deeds, mortgages, court order books, minute books. So those would pertain to records you find in a courthouse, probably. And so here is an example of an article by who I call Betty Darnell is our indexing queen for the Louisville lines and bylines. As I browse through all the quarterlies looking for articles to put in this PowerPoint, I realized Betty has been indexing and submitting indexes to our quarterly since 1989. Could even be earlier, but that was the earliest I could find. So Betty is still indexing. I think she started with either births or deaths in Jefferson County, went to the next one, and now she is doing deed indexes. So that's what this is on your screen. It's in the fall 2020, lines and bylines. She gives you the years in the deed books that at the top of the article here. And then she is on the letter H. And every quarterly, she has 3 or 4 pages right now of deed indexes. So another area where one could pull information about records that are stored in a repository and give that to their members as an index in their quarterly. So now we've got government records. Can you find those records at the local, state, and national level? And some of those examples would be tax list, military records, pension applications, passports, immigration, or naturalization records. And so what you would do is create an index. You're not going to put all these in your quarterly. Although personally, you might have a pension application of an ancestor, and you could use that pension application to create a lovely article. Where did you find the pension application? How did you locate it? What was in it? What information did you find on your ancestor? All great material for an article. So here's an example of a government record I found in our winter 1990 through winter 1991 lines and bylines. It took 5 quarterlies to put this collection in. And this is a collection that was extracted by 2 women, Grace Counts and Lillian Blackwell. And it is the Declaration of Intent Naturalization in Louisville at the Kentucky Police Court Book J. Now, I'm not sure if this is down at the courthouse or down at Metro Archives. You'd have to find that out, but they've indexed these documents. Really, they're an extract or an abstract. So notice you have a date. This is done chronological, not alphabetical. And so we have the name of the person who's making the declaration of intent, where he came from, where he was born, where he came in. I mean, valuable information. And if this was your ancestor, then you could go find that complete record. But this would be a great list to put in a quarterly to help your members. And like I said, each quarterly had 4 to 5 pages, and we've got 5 issues here. So quite a lengthy collection, but very valuable for your members. Another area are family records and family research. Now, this could be personal family records and research, or maybe you might be doing somebody somebody famous that lived in your community or lived in your city or township, and you might want to write up an article about them. But you could go find those and then do extracts or abstracts of old and rare published works, such as an atlas or a directory or a biographies. And you know, those books that were published from 1890 to about 1910, I know our former founder of LGS used to call those the brag books. Great articles in there of famous Louisvillians or famous people that lived in your, not maybe famous, but they were people of worth that lived in your community, and you could put together a lovely article about them based on what you extract from those books. You could do it on Louisvillians who moved to other states, either within your family or, we have Daniel Boone here in Kentucky who leaves and goes to Missouri. So where did these people go when they left Kentucky? Another article could be topical, how to break a brick wall and give your story of how you broke through a brick wall, how to plan a research trip to Ireland. Excellent article you could write. And then you got how-to articles. How to use a certain tool that you found. Maybe you just learned how to use a scanner and you used it at the library. How did you use it? Did you save it to a hard drive? Did you save it to a flash drive? How did, it would be a great 1 or 2 page article on how to use a scanner. General history, are articles that assess source materials in libraries. So that's a whole nother arena where you could create an article and submit it to your society's publication. Now, some of these societies I know just have newsletters, some of you have quarterlies, some of you have journals, but most societies have some form of publication, and I'm sure their editors would love articles that the members would submit. So here's an example of a family research article that was in our 2017 Lines and Bylines. This is by our former president, Tom Mercer. And he wrote, I think Tom was getting ready to write a book about this gentleman, this Felix Grundy Stigger. And so he abbreviated, made an abstract. I think this ended up being an 8 to 10 page article. Well, I'll let y'all know you don't need to write one that long. But sometimes when you start writing, it expands much farther than what you ever thought it would. But here is an article where he is searching for the Masonic roots of a Union spy, Felix Grundy Stigger. And he gives you the story of how he found this material and what the story is about a Union spy in Kentucky who is a Masonic member. This is a great how-to article. This is written by our editor right now, Susan Snyder, and this was in our spring 2022 quarterly. And she is showing people using, we love our digital format. You can put these colored photos in, and it's so nice to show how to do something. She's showing our members how to translate foreign language documents with Google Translate. I mean, what a tool. This is a really good tool to learn to use, and she takes you step by step. So what tool have you learned to use lately? Could you write a 1 or a 2 page article explaining step by step how to use this tool? Oh, let's talk about photos. Photos are always great submissions to a publication, a genealogical publication. And photos can be personal photos, like maybe you have a photo of a family reunion in 1955. You could talk about how many years it's been held, where was it held, who attended, who was the oldest, who was the youngest, what information do you know, who were the families attending this? Great article, using a photo maybe of their family reunion. Or maybe you have a photo of a commercial district. Us in Louisville would maybe have a photo of Bardstown Road in 1920, and maybe one of your ancestors had a meat market on that street. There's a story right there. What are the business signs? What are the advertisements? So photographs can be a great prompt to write an article. So the problem, though, with photos is you want to make sure you're not using a copyright photo. If you are, you have to get permission to use it, and you need to state that in your article. But there are many, many unrestricted, out of copyright photos out there on the internet. And one place I love to go to find them is the Library of Congress. I Google Library of Congress, and then I put a space and put photos, and it takes me right to their photo collection. And in that photo collection is a search window, and I put in Louisville. And Louisville brought up hundreds of pictures. Now, I probably could have been more specific and put a neighborhood that's in Louisville and found pictures. So you want to go here and find photos for your own articles and your own research, but how nice to share that with the members in your society and put it in your quarterly. This is a photo I found. This is a beautiful photo, I think, and it was a collection of 10 or 12 photos in a collection called Louisville Murals at the Gene Snyder Federal Building. So downtown in Louisville at the Federal Building, this artist, who I have no idea who this artist is, but there's the article that you could write. Who is the artist? Why was this commissioned? Why was it chosen to be put in the Federal Building? And what do these pictures tell you about Louisville? Of course, we've got horses, and we've got to have horses if you're talking about Louisville, but not all the pictures have horses. So it'd be a great article to take 1, 2, or 3 of these photos, write up a nice article about the artist, what the dates were, when it was put in this building, or maybe, and then you could do 3 or 4 for every quarterly for, 3 or 4 issues. So photos are really great, and I really highly recommend going to the Library of Congress to find those that are out of copyright. So we've talked about several different types of articles that you can write and submit to your quarterly or your publication. But the important thing, I think, before you even start writing is to get to know your quarterly. Have you really read through the most recent quarterlies and analyze the articles, look at the type of articles that are written in your quarterly, and then use them as a guide. You're going to be attracted to one type of writing that you want to do. Maybe you want to index. Well, go look at some of the quarterlies and see if people have submitted some articles on indexing death records or birth records or marriage records, and see how they did it. And then you could, maybe you have a church, you go to the local church and their records have not been indexed or put in your quarterly. Great article. And always remember that your editors are there to help you. Our committee, we have Susan Snyder is our head editor, and her husband is right there with her, Bill Snyder, as an editor. And then we have a committee with Amy Wasowski and me. And so we are more than willing to help you polish up your article, help you find documents. Maybe all of a sudden you've realized you're missing a document and you need to find it and you're not sure where it is, or you want to know how to write the footnotes. We're more than willing to help you. And just a little plug here. If you're interested in being on the editorial committee, we'd love to have you. So let Susan or Bill Snyder know, and we'll add you to our committee. So real quick here, as I was looking through the quarterlies, I realized there were some issues that had our past issues indexed. This is great. So here's the fall 2009 quarterly, and in it is an index of the titles of articles in the quarterlies from 1986 to 1994. That's 8 years. So if you go to the fall 2009 lines and bylines, you can find this little, well, it's not little, I think it's 3 pages of index of, here's this quarterly, the fall 1986, and here's the titles, and you can look through them. And then they continued from every issue and added all the way up through 2009. And for some reason, we had a change in editors, or we had other issues, or maybe this person just got tired. We stopped indexing. So if any member of LGS would like to do an article on indexing the 2010 through 2022, there's a prompt right there to get you going on writing an article. Here's an example of that article that was written. This is the indexes of 1986 through 1994. And like I said, I think it's 2 or 3 pages. But here's 1986, volume 1. Now, our society was created in the fall of 1985. And in 86, we came out with our first quarterly. And I think what's amazing when you look at these quarterlies is to look at the evolution of publishing. In 1986, it was typed, run off on a mimeograph machine. They threw a colored page on top with the title of lines and bylines, stapled the corner, and handed it out at the meetings to their members. Eventually, they started mailing them. Eventually, they moved from mimeograph to copy machines, and now we're into the digital world. And so the articles have enhanced and developed into these beautiful quarterlies now. So in the spring of 1986, there's only one article because it was the first quarterly. It's got the Constitution, the bylaws, who the new officers were. And our founder, Jane Ham, wrote about her Revolutionary War ancestor, John Alexander. And it's a beautiful article talking about her Revolutionary War ancestor. There's another topic you could write about. Who's your Revolutionary War ancestor? Most of us have several. And you could write articles about them. And then here's summer, fall, winter, and they took each set and told you the name of the articles. We're going to establish a tab behind our member wall that will have these indexes. So you can go in there and look at the index, and from there, go to the other tab and access that quarterly, because all our quarterlies are digitized and on our website behind the member wall. Okay, so we need somebody maybe to index the 2010 through the 2022. So for you people out there that are from Louisville, are your quarterlies indexed? If they aren't, that's a great project, and many articles can come out of that to put into your publication. Here's another idea. This is an index that's in our lines and bylines, and I'm not sure a lot of our members know this. And we have a huge German population in Louisville, and many of our members have German ancestors that go back to the mid 1800s and even into the 20th century as far as coming into Louisville. So we have an index of the Louisville Anzeiger, which is the Louisville German newspaper. Printed, some of the material says it started about 1844 and goes to about 1938. This is a really valuable resource for people who live in Louisville, and even people who live other places, but an ancestor lived in Louisville who was German, who might have been in this newspaper. We have a member here, Joseph Reinhardt, who proceeded to write this article that you're looking at. This was in the spring 1993 issue, and he wrote about the Louisville Anzeiger, a valuable research, and he starts out by telling you about the newspaper and then why he ended up developing this index. So he writes about 2 or 3 pages about his ancestor and who he was looking for and why he accessed this. Oh, and he also tells you these newspaper collection is on microfilm over at the Filson, and also it's over at the University of Louisville archives. So a local newspaper, especially if you have a German newspaper in your town, is an excellent resource to index and share with your members, or even your local county paper or your local city paper, if you have a city big enough that had a press that produced a newspaper. So at the end of that article, here's what Joe did, Reinhardt. He starts with, he tells you January and February issues are missing. So he starts with March, and he does the year 1855 alphabetically. He lists the people. He puts their age if it's there. Eventually, they do start stating the age, the date of death, and the date published in the newspaper. So this is a very valuable source, and it is in about, I'm going to go back here, from 1993 to 1995 are the indexes that Joe produced. And he did it from 1848, and he stopped about 1866. Okay, so, oops, I'm sorry. So there's a project for anybody. If you're looking for something to index and you have German relatives here in Louisville, maybe you want to go to the Filson and start pulling those names out of deaths and obits and putting them in alphabetical order and submitting them as an article to the lines and bylines. They haven't been done from 1866 to 1938. So that's a big project. We had a number of people working on it. It would be very valuable. I suggest if you're interested in this, though, you contact Susan Snyder, and let her know so we don't have people duplicating this index. So excellent resource for our members. So in summary, I just want to wrap up in the middle of this presentation here, the types of submissions. We've looked at local records, court records, government records, family records, and research that you've done, how-to articles, and articles written about photographs. Now, the one I love are family stories. And we're going to spend just a few minutes talking about how to create family stories. Very valuable for both the writer who's creating this article about their family and the preservation of that story. So why should you write a family story? Why should you write about your ancestors? Well, genealogists enjoy reading anybody's story about their ancestor. Another reason is if you write about an ancestor who's your brick wall, you might be sharing your methodology and your information that will help others break through their brick walls. Another reason for writing about your family is it allows you to preserve your family history for future generations. Once you write this article and you publish it, it's going to be out there for others to find. You know, if you keep all your data in your database and don't share it and don't tell the stories, nobody can find it. Nobody knows where it is. So stories are great ways to share your family history and preserve it. It also sharpens your research skills. As you're writing the article, you might all of a sudden realize, oh my goodness, I don't have the name of great-great-grandpa's second wife or their marriage record. I need to go find that. So it sharpens your skills and makes your research a little bit more complete. So let's talk about how to put together an article on your family stories. First, I want to talk about title. Your title is what's going to pull the reader in. So it should be concise, accurate, informative. You want to enable others to find your article. So if you're writing an article about your fourth great grandfather who came into Kentucky in 1793, you want others to find that article and read. And you're going to have relatives looking for other information about your ancestor too. If he's a fourth great grandfather, there's a lot of living relatives existing right now who would like to add those stories to their genealogy. So we're going to talk a little bit about how they can find that article. Percy is a periodical source index. And if you've not heard of this before, it is a tool that the Allen County Public Library has set up and put on their website. Allen County Public Library up in Fort Wayne, Indiana, has made it a mission, I think 40 or 50 years ago, to start collecting genealogical publications from local, state, and national genealogical societies, and also societies of genealogy interest around the world. And they collect all those periodicals and they store them in the Allen County Public Library. But how do you find those articles? Well, they've created the periodical source index so you can go to their website, and I'll show you in a few minutes how to do that, and search for an article. But the reason I'm sharing this with you is because it's based on the title of the article. So your title, as much as you want to be creative with a title, you want to make sure that your title contains relevant keywords that can be searched and your article can be found. So here's the periodical source index at Fort Wayne. And I have to apologize. I decided to put this slide in my presentation after I sent the handout. So this is not in your handout. So you might want to write down this website at the top of this slide. The genealogycenter.org takes you straight to the Allen County Public Library to their genealogy section on their website. And when you get there, there'll be tabs at the top, and you want to click on Explore. And once you get in that and have a pull-down menu, you want to select resources, and then you want to select their free databases, and then you want to select Percy. So you have to drill a little bit. It's not the easiest tool to find on their website. And when you get there, this slide is showing you what it's going to look like. And notice you can search by surnames. You can search by location. If you click on US, it'll allow you to pick the state, and then it allows you to pick the county, and then you can search that way. You can search for research techniques. Let's say you want to put in brick wall or probate records or deeds. This will bring up articles written on those topics. At the very bottom here, article title keywords. That's where they're going to pull keywords to put into their index for people to search. I can't tell you how important this is as a writer of articles for genealogy periodicals. Now, when I go up to Fort Wayne to research, and our society goes up there in May, I spend one day I dedicate just for using Percy and finding articles written in publications that they have right there in their library. So I could put in Vermilion County, put in my surname Putman, and find all the articles that are written about Vermilion County or have this in their title, Vermilion County or the surname Putman. And this is where I found a picture of a great-great-grandfather who was in the Civil War, who I thought I had researched thoroughly. For 30 years, I had material on him. I knew him inside and out. I pulled up a quarterly from Vermilion County, and there was a picture of him in his second lieutenant Union uniform. Never had seen it before. So a lot of value in using this periodical source index. And if you can't go to Fort Wayne, you can email them. If you tell them what periodical, what page, they'll go copy it and email it to you within 24 hours. Excellent. So let's move on. I want to show you an article written in our lines and bylines and show you the title. Okay, this is written by Philip Albert Wagner, one of our founding members back in 1988. And he wrote an article named Amos Shadburn in Jane Falls, their descendants, 1755 to 1988. Okay, what's important about this title? You can search Shadburn. This is when I went to Percy and looked this article up. It was indexed by Shadburn and Falls. It also had Kentucky. So I could search for Kentucky, but that's a broad search. I'm going to get too many articles. But once I put in Kentucky and put Shadburn, probably not too many articles written on that, and you can find this article. So your title is really important if you want the article to be found. All right, let's talk about the introductory paragraph. After your title, this is the next most important thing. It's the pivotal part of writing. It's what hooks your reader. This is where you can be creative. Don't be creative in that title. You know, put those keywords in so it can be searched and found. In your introductory paragraph, you can be a little bit more creative. And everybody has their own writing skills. You can kind of put it together the way you're comfortable with. But I think you need to realize you need to hook your reader. You need to talk about content. In other words, acquaint the reader with the topic you're going to write about. If you're going to write about your fourth great-grandfather, his name should be mentioned in this first introductory paragraph. What's the purpose of your article? And so a lot of times we call that the thesis statement. What do you hope to accomplish? And you want to leave your reader with, he or she's been pulled in to read this article. You might have a picture right there too. I always suggest putting a picture under your title before that introduction. It pulls the reader in. Pictures are powerful. And now that we have digital quarterlies, those pictures are beautiful, or a document. And then pull the reader in, give them a little idea of what you're going to talk about, and then jump into the body of your paper. So here's an example of an introductory paragraph and a title I wanted to show you. This is by a former editor too in our fall 2019 edition of Lines and Bylines. And the title is Fake News of the 1800s. And the subtitle, of course, is the 1866 story of Bardstown tragedy and a newspaper's shame. And she puts her name. Don't forget to give yourself credit here. A lot of people turn articles into us and they don't even put their name at the top. So make sure you put your name by. And notice her first sentence. Sensationalism sells. Okay, she's being creative. She's trying to pull you in. And she talks about this newspaper article, how it was written, the author of the article, the newspaper writer, kind of exaggerated and lied a little bit. And then he had to go back and retract his statements. And basically, she's saying in the end, the falsehoods compounded the sadness of Sue Blaine's fate. So this introductory paragraph pulls you in, and then she shares about 2 more pages about this article. So make sure you can pull the reader in and let them know what your article is going to be about. And then you're going to write your main body. Where the story's at, where's your evidence? This is where you're going to put your documents. Each paragraph's going to have a certain topic or notion, and then you try to kind of be fluid and flow from one paragraph into the next. Writing for genealogical articles about our ancestors is pretty easy because we like to do it chronologically. So unless you have an event, like maybe the runaway bride, and you start with the marriage, you're pretty well going to go back and start with that ancestor's birth and progress through their life. So it's not that difficult to flow from one paragraph to the other. A conclusion. You want to summarize your article, restate your thesis statement, outline the main points that you made in the article, and then leave an overall solution or a suggestion to the reader. So I have an article here written here by a member, Yvette Norsworthy, in 2019. And she writes, look at her title here, DNA Results Linking John D. Carter and Noah Carter. So you've got several things you could search for. Topic, DNA, it's going to find this article. Surname, Carter. And then she's got subtitle, Family Finder Results for Yvonne Carter Norsworthy and Sharon Carter Street. Kind of already know what she's going to write about here before reading her introductory, but great title. Definitely could be searchable and found. But what I want to show you is her concluding paragraph. And she starts out, well, many people are reluctant to have their DNA analyzed for genealogical research due to a fear of something sinister being done with the information. And she goes on and explains how DNA is becoming very popular. There's many, many companies. And then she ends up with, having said all that, I highly recommend that you do not hesitate to use the DNA test as part of your research. Okay, so she's telling you how important this was for her as a tool, and you need to do it too. So excellent article, great conclusion. Well, am I convincing you it's not that hard? I hope so. I hope you realize that you have to find your interest area, and then we're genealogists, we're loaded with data. Once we decide what we want to write as a family story, we've got all that data, and we know these ancestors. Nobody knows them better than us. We're responsible for telling their story. So I just want to really quickly show you how I start. You don't have to do this. This is what I do. I start with a plain piece of paper. I draw a circle and I put the main topic. So my main topic might be here, Amos Wilson. And then I start brainstorming on his life. I might put he's born in Virginia in 1767. I never could find parents for him. That's a whole paragraph right there on all my research, where I've looked, never found parents. But I do find the first document about him is an indentured document. He's 16 years old and he's being indentured to a gentleman named Samuel Wilson. But I have no idea how he's related to Samuel. Then I go on. I'm going to talk about his first wife and living in Virginia. And he actually is in the local militia then. And then he moves to Ohio. And I keep doing this, brainstorming. Now, do I use all this information? I might not. Some of it might seem redundant. Eventually, I think I might have too much, so I can eliminate. I can combine. I might want to put this circle here about no parents in the same paragraph as his birth. So from here, I can start developing an outline and putting together these topics with what I want to relate within that topic. This might be his birth and his lack of not finding who his parents. Was he an orphan? He could have been an orphan from the Revolutionary War. Was he an orphan because of an illness of the family? Why was he? I have no idea why he was given an apprenticeship. So I could I'll put all those together. So I start organizing the flow of my paper. I start a rough draft. I'm going to read through it and make changes, combine, shift things around, eliminate. And then I'm going to finally edit it by doing a spell check. Don't we love computers? They spell check, use Microsoft Word. The spell check's built right in. You can do a grammar check. Just a little hint, I downloaded the free version of Grammarly. It even checks my grammar in my emails. So a great tool to use as you're getting ready to send it to your editor of your publication. All right, we're to the big hurdle here. Everybody ready to learn how to write a citation and why we should write citations? I'm going to quickly kind of go through this. So what is it, citing sources in genealogy? Well, it means you've recorded or you've got a record where you found information about an individual or an event. And it's not as hard as you think, because look at the examples. Birth and death certificates can be sources that you can document as a footnote. Census records, church records, tombstones. Some people didn't realize tombstones, and I realized tombstones can have the wrong dates on them, but I'll tell you what, so can birth and death certificates. Okay, so tombstones, usually if they're not more recently been replaced, new tombstones, if they're older, they're more accurate. You can use that for a source. Military records, family records, and then even published genealogies. Those are secondary sources. If you're trying to join a lineage society, they won't accept genealogies, but you're writing a story about your ancestor. And if your great uncle wrote a book about your mother's family line, and you want to include some of those information to document, you can do that. You can cite your source. What's the name of the book? Who was the author? So it helps you make your information reliable. It provides you with a history of your sources. When you do that, there's a list, you know what you've done. It deals with conflicting information. I have a great-great-grandfather who has 4 sources for his birth, and 3 of them are different. He's born anywhere from 1866 to 1869. So I have several census records, and they all differ. So you might want to list them all and let the reader decide what's the reliable source of his birth date. And you want to acknowledge work done by others. Anytime you pull something out of a book, you need to acknowledge that you use that book and give that author recognition. So, our lines and bylines, and for you people who are guests today, you want to check with your editor or look at your quarterlies or your journals and see how the citations are done, because that's probably how you should do them then. We want them cited, and we want them cited as footnotes, not endnotes. And let's talk about why we might want that. Why do we want footnotes versus putting all the sources at the end of the article? And many quarterlies and journals do that. But we would like you to put them at the bottom of the page because it quickens the process, especially in our digital format. The footnotes are right there available at the bottom of the page. So as you're reading the information and you get to, let's say, a marriage, and it has a footnote symbol, it's footnote number 33. You go to the bottom of the page, look at that, and say, oh, they found it on Family Search in this collection. And guess what? The person even put the ULR. So you can click on the ULR and it takes you right to Family Search and you can see the document. Oh my goodness. It doesn't get any better than that. So when you write an article, you might include 2 or 3 documents as photos, but you can't put them all in the article. So what you do is you put the ULR down in the footnote, and the reader can click on that and take right to that document, whatever collection or repository it's in. So it's easy to link. It's easy to read, and then go to the bottom of the page, look at that footnote, that source, and if you need be or you're interested, you click on it and go right to the ULR website and look at that document. So not all of them will have a ULR. It just might tell you where they found the book or what website they found the information, and it's right there as they're reading along. So here's some examples of citations. Over here on the left, I have just a general. Most of you know this. If you've ever written a paper before, you want the author, last name first, then the title of the source, publisher, year of publication, volume, page. And then nowadays we can put a website and the ULR address if you have it. Works great. So here's a book up here. Here's the author. Here's the title of the book in italics. Sometimes people put it in bold print. Sometimes they underline it. Here's the publishing date, here's the page numbers, and here's where I found it. Here's a census record. We all use census records. So I found this on Ancestry. So here we go. You just put the census, put the county, the state, the page, and here's the ULR. You can click on that. If you're a member of Ancestry, it's going to take you right to the document. Also, Ancestry does have footnotes right there in their documents. When you go to that document, there's a place where you can click and go to the citation. You can use that or shorten it up. That's what I did. I mean, you want to take the KISS approach here. You just want to make it easy for somebody to go find that document. Here's Find a Grave. We all use Find a Grave. Now I realize Find a Grave can be skeptical as far as the accuracy, but the tombstone pictures are great. So this is a Find a Grave. There's no author, so I just put Find a Grave first. Here's the memorial number. It's Richard Stites. He died in 1776. This is on the tombstone. I state the cemetery, where it's located, and I give them the ULR. They can go straight there. Okay, now sometimes we use this for relationships too, because sometimes on Find a Grave, it's going to list Benjamin or Richard. It's going to have his wife. It might even have some of his children. So you could use that as a source too. Magazine or a journal, the author, the name of the article, and then the periodical it's in, the volume, and the page number. I gave you in your handout, I think, 3 pages of examples. The Draper Papers, a family Bible, all these different various sources and some footnotes for it. I also give you a web address to the Family Search Wiki on footnote citations, and it has 4 times as many as I gave you in the handout. So you can go there too. It's an excellent source for footnotes. So it's really not all that hard. Am I convincing you? It's going to make you a better researcher. It's going to help you organize and preserve your family's history. It's a natural part of the writing process, an excellent way to, you find holes in your research when you have to write an article and document it and put it in chronological order. It's altogether different than looking at data in a database. So the last 2, writing can bring your ancestor stories to life in a way that simply creating a family tree does not. I have stories of attending family reunions years ago, 10, 12 years ago, not that long ago. And I would take my printouts and I would publish them and put them in a little folder over at Staples and take my register of the family and I'd show it to them and they'd quickly look in the index, find their name, go to that page, see if their children were listed and say, "That's nice, Aunt Nancy." Then I started writing stories. I started writing stories of my ancestors and posted them on Facebook. And then I decided I need to form a blog and put these stories in a blog. Now, when I go to family gatherings, they all come up and say, "Aunt Nancy, I have 21 nieces and nephews. Aunt Nancy, I'm printing out every one of them. I love the stories. I love the one about the guy that fought at the Battle of Brandywine. I like the one you wrote about Dennis Cronin, the fireman in Detroit." So it makes their lives come to life. It makes them true, which makes me think of the Broadway play Hamilton. I just went to watch it with a dear friend about 2 or 3 weeks ago for the second time. And at the very end of Hamilton, the very end of the play, the cast sings the song entitled, "Who Lives, Who Dies, Who Will Tell Your Story?" As genealogists, we have a responsibility to share these stories because we know the stories, we have the data. And family trees are abstract, but stories add depth, okay? They put life into your ancestor. So what are some ideas that can prompt you into action? If I haven't given you enough already, let me quickly list a few. Personal family stories or pictures. Our Lines and Bylines has just started a new series, Bound to Kentucky. Who were your first ancestors into Kentucky? Write a story about it. Who were they? Where did they come from? How did they get to Kentucky? Who came with them? Did they have children where they were before? How many children were born when they got to Kentucky? Do you know even how they got into Kentucky? How long did they stay? Did they leave Kentucky? And so right there, you've got almost a 2 to 3 page article with a couple photos or pictures or documents, and you can tell us about your ancestor that was bound to Kentucky. Amy Johnson Crow has 52 ancestors in 52 weeks. What she does is give you not one word, she gives you prompts. So my article on my second great grandfather, who was a fireman in the city of Detroit, left Cork County, Ireland, and came to Detroit in 1878. became a fireman in the 1880s, late 1880s, and was a fireman with a horse-drawn water cart, and retired when those they call them water carts, became motorized. So I have pictures of the actual fire department that he was a captain at. You can get on Google and Google, Louisville Fire Department, Springfield, Ohio Fire Department. Most of them have museums or digital web pages that talk about it. So you can go out there and add photos that tell about and enhance the story of your ancestor. Genealogy Bloggers has lots of prompts. And so here's several here you can access if you haven't found enough already or heard enough. So in summary, get over it, folks. You really can do this. It's not that hard. You just need to select something. So you will grow as a researcher. Read articles from your past publications. Louisville people are going to read lines and bylines. If you're from another area, pull out your societies. Most of us have the hard copies on our bookcase, or maybe you have to go to the library, but go look at those quarterlies, look at those journals and get an idea. It's totally different to look at those articles from the perspective of a writer and see how they did it. You can also do it the same way. Select an article you'd like to write or you're comfortable with, and then start getting organized, brainstorm, create an outline or a timeline, say it with pictures and documents, and then ask for help if you need it. I think that's one of the hardest things for us to do. We have a hard time asking for help, but do it. We're here to help you. So this is the end of my presentation, and I hope I gave you some ideas. I hope I built some confidence. I hope the handout will help you. And I say, who will tell your story? If you don't write about your ancestors, who will? And it's our responsibility to do that. So I'm going to stop jibber jabbering here. And Amy, I'm going to have you throw some questions at me.
Yeah. One of the things that I just wanted to share, and I think you touched on it, was that sometimes some of the members may be intimidated starting an article or writing it, but we've had a lot of luck. We'll be willing to help. So yeah, if you could get more experienced writers to be a resource and say they'll be glad to look it over and help you with it, that really helps get more articles for your quarterlies or for your newsletters as well.
Excellent advice. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, so we do have a comment and a question. Well, first of all, the question: when you're using old photos that may have babies in the photo, and you have to consider that these babies are now in their 70s and 80s, if you wanted to publish an article and use that photo with these babies, and they may be alive now in their 70s and 80s, do you need permission?
Personally, I think you need to know your family. I've published many with babies and put them in, but you're right. As you have people who are still living that are in those articles, I think you have to know your family and know the person. And if you're not sure, there's no harm in asking. So yes, I think it'd be probably appropriate to call that ancestor and say, I'm putting together an article for my local Genealogical Society publication, and I have a picture within it. Do you feel comfortable with me using that picture?
Okay. All right. And then there was also a comment regarding the Percy Index, that it's now held on the Allen County Library site. It's for free. So you can go with a list to pull rather than start at the lookup point. So that's just a comment that was made.
It used to be the Percy was on Find My Past. And just in the last 2 years, Allen County has pulled it back to their website. But you do have to kind of drill to find it.
Okay. So lots of great people are really pleased with the information. Here's another follow-up question to the photos. Can you address submitting photos you don't own along with your article?
So I guess I would ask where they found that photo. If you found it on Ancestry or if you found it on Family Search, I think it's public knowledge. I'm pretty sure you can use those. I know Family Search allows you to store photos, but if you save it as a living, they won't be visible, so people can't really copy them. Again, I think you need to know your family. I think legally you can use those, if you pull them off the internet. Now, if somebody personally gave you a picture, you probably do have to ask them, if it's not out there in the world of the internet.
All right, that was all the questions that we have. Does anybody else have any questions?
That little raised hand, but I don't even know if anybody knows how to use that because we never used it too much.
All right.
Well, good. I hope everybody will come back and join us here at our next activity. A month from now, we're going to have Luann Darby talk about German brick walls. Should be very interesting. Don't forget our German SIG group on the first Tuesday of the month. And I just want to thank everybody for attending today.